Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. I'm honored to be here to speak about the work I've been doing. My name is Ekene Ijeoma, and I'm an interdisciplinary artist and founder of Black Forest, a living monument and archive for Black lives. I'm developing partnerships with local governments, organizations, and communities to record over 40,000 stories about Black life and plant over 40,000 trees for them across all 50 states. I founded Black Forest in my former lab, Poetic Justice, at MIT. It was the first artist-led and arts-focused group at the MIT Media Lab. For 5 years, from 2019 to 2024, my lab and I asked the question, how can we create art at the same scale as injustice? My answer was that the work had to be, no, I didn't create this. This is, okay. So this is actually an artwork from Lauren Bond, and I can't remember the name of her studio, but it's on there. And this is based off of a quote from an artist, Sherry Rabinowitz. And her quote was that artists had to create at the scale that society has the capacity to destroy. So sort of in response to that, my lab was asking, how can we create art at the same scale as injustice, which is the scale of society in a lot of ways. So my answer to that was that the work had to be public, that the work had to be participatory or community-driven, the work has to be multi-site, and the work has to be networked. And all the work I produced in my lab was all those four. At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement, this question became specifically, how can we create art at the same scale as COVID-19 and the disproportionate effect it had and still has in Black communities nationwide? At the time, most of the labs at MIT had shifted all their work to respond to COVID-19, developing new face masks, ventilators, trackers, and et cetera. In my lab, I didn't want our work to be responsive. I wanted it to be proactive and generative. And so one afternoon, I had a revelation. On my walk-in meditation, there was a tree that spoke to me. It had been cut down, chopped up, and spread out across the parking lot. It reminded me of these images of Michael Brown. Why had they left him in the street for so long? Why had they let this tree in the street for so long? Still in front of the tree, I meditated on this for a while. Then I received a message. It was plant trees to breathe new life into communities that experience disproportionate loss. And then I thought of the name Black Forest, and after I spent a year building a case for Black Forest within MIT. Why is this needed? Black Americans were disproportionately affected and killed by COVID-19. There were little to no options for visiting loved ones or burying them. Many died in hospitals or were cremated, and many Black funeral homes and cemeteries closed. Where is this needed? I read the rich here as white, and on average, Black communities have less trees than white neighborhoods nationwide. How are trees related to COVID-19? I found that there was a higher COVID-19 rates in neighborhoods with less trees. There are also higher rates of respiratory illnesses and cancers in these same neighborhoods. And I'm thinking, wow, this is getting intersectional. What is Black about Black Forest? I found Heidi Catherine, who in the 1960s, along with the Neighborhood Tree Corps, planted over 1,500 trees in Brooklyn, specifically across Bed-Stuy. And then I'm thinking, this work is getting Black and feminist. And in the 1970s, Wangari Maathai and the Greenbelt movement planted over 50 million trees in Kenya. And it seems Black women have been long using tree planting to upend violent histories and uplift Black life. Starting in 2022, I developed partnerships with local governments, organizations, and communities to plant over 500 trees of many species and sizes in parks, lawns, and sidewalks across 8 states: Michigan, Massachusetts, California, Florida, Missouri, Rhode Island, Washington, and New York. I'm going to talk about 3 events in cities including Melvindale outside of Detroit, Providence, and Seattle. This photo is from the first event in Melvindale outside of Detroit. That afternoon, me and many others planted our first trees. Altogether, we planted over 60 trees across the Black Church community garden and a community center. We dug holes and we put trees in them. I invited the descendants of local ancestors to hand number and date the tree tags. The tags have a logo and slogan. The slogan is a living monument and archive for Black lives lost to COVID-19. That has since expanded into just a living monument and archive for Black lives. And on it, it said, "This tree is dedicated to those lost from this region. Call or text this number to hear memories from the relatives, friends, and neighbors. Share your own or plant trees for them. Take care." We stuck these tags on the tree guards, and people meditated and prayed with these trees. This is Monique Taylor. The same day the year before, her and her twin lost their mom to COVID-19. I'm developing a series of short films documenting her stories and others. I'm gonna play the first cuts of these unreleased films, and this is the first one from the first event that was on November 5th, 2022 in Melvindale.
We're going to dedicate this to my mother, Essie Taylor. Last year, today, November the 5th, my mother passed from COVID after being in the hospital at Santa Grace for over a month. The hardest part about it was we were not able to see her. We were denied our video chat before she passed. So when Makisa got the call to dedicate a tree to her, of course she said yes. I want to tell my mother that I love her, I miss her. And they're gonna plant this tree for you, Mom.
And the next one, which I'll share, is from St. Louis in 2024. We invited families who had lost someone to COVID-19 and planted about 5 trees with them.
We never really lost our grandmother. We never lost our great-great-grandfather. We never lost anybody who actually lived on this land that we now stand on, because they are also here with us. We think about this large, majestic persimmon tree that is behind us, and knowing that these trees that are about to be rooted and planted, these oaks are going to thrive and survive. And we will find shade. The children will find shade. The elders will find beauty in those things. This will refresh the air.
I got a call in the wee hours of the morning. My brother, Mark McElrath, was living in Duluth, Minnesota. And the nurse on the other end of the phone said, "Your brother's here." When they initially called, I said, "Okay, I'm on my way." And they said, "No, don't do that, because you're gonna come here and we can't let you in to the hospital." So, like many of you, I never got the real experience of being able to hold a loved one's hand as they transition. In that final conversation over the phone, and you're trying to get everything in, all I could say to him was, "You did the best you could. You did the best you could." And all I wanted him to know was that I love you. And in the end, that is the most important thing about all of this.
I'm going to blow the conch shell, signaling the air and the breath that passes through me, but also there will be particles of water and breath and life that flows through. And let us continue to let that happen with us, is to let all of these things, this life and these expressions of love, let these things continue to flow through us as we continue in this process here on this side.
And this last one I'll play is from an event that we did in Seattle in 2024. We planted about over 20 trees in a park dedicated to Powell S. Barnett, a musician, civil rights activist, and African-American community leader who helped to build Seattle. You'll see his granddaughter at the end putting a tag on the tree.
We're here to give back to Mother Earth. We call and we welcome the ancestors of the South to this place of ceremony and togetherness and honoring of Mother Earth. We welcome you with love and appreciation. We welcome the waters and summer and growing and the heart and our connections and our compassion to ourselves and our connection with one another. May we always walk in compassion, and may the waters cleanse us. May we offer our grief, our sadness, our fear, everything to the waters. We thank you.
Giving thanks to all the ancestors of this land, to the Duwamish people who were here for centuries before this city of Seattle was built. I would like to give thanks to all the ancestors of the Central District. The Central District was 90% black in 1970, and at this point, it's 30% black. So I want to give thanks to all those ancestors who have passed. We want to honor all those who have gone before us and who have made the way for us. We always have to remember it is the ancestors who carry us. We don't carry them, they carry us. They make our way. And be certain to honor them, to speak with them.
And let whatever we experience here today be exactly what we need, what the earth needs. May we be in this container of love and belonging and safety for these moments and beyond. Asheo Ho Mateo. Thank you.
So as you can see, each event was site-specific and responsive to the partners and the communities in the region. For me and many others, it seems like Black Forest could be poetic justice for these communities. So in May, Black Forest will be included in the first art triennial in Boston. We'll be planting 40 trees across Boston. In 2022, I planted about over 20 trees, and we'll be planting a tree in that same park as well. I'll also be installing a bench around 2 of the trees for the first time as well, so that'll be sort of combining my sculpture practice and also this tree planting practice, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm organizing across 30 cities within the US and abroad also. One of the first events outside will most likely be in Johannesburg. And so I'm planning to plant about 1,000 trees this year. However, I'm still fundraising, and at the same time, my partners are losing funding because of the new administration, so that may slow over time. So please help by giving back and spreading the word, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Very powerful, beautiful project. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm curious to expand the project if you've reached out to any like tree groups or so on to build the. I mean, even the project that happened years ago, Million Trees. I mean, have you tried to talk to Mike?
Mike Bloomberg?
Yeah. I mean, this is, why not? I mean, this is a good project. I mean, he should love it. He should love you.
I mean, hopefully. If anyone knows Mike, tell him. I mean, well, I have, well, one of my, like, mentors forgot what she was. She was, like, the ED on that project. And they had a lot of problems planting those trees because they couldn't find places to plant them. Right. And that's a lot of the same issue that we have as well, is like where to plant the trees. Well, and just so happens that in a lot of these black communities, there's no trees. So, the first event we had, I organized in New York City, and also New York State, was actually in November. In South Bronx, we planted over 60 trees in Soundview Park. So we have started planning in New York, and I'm also developing some other partnerships to expand it in New York.
I mean, Trees New York might also be a nice partner. Have you talked to them?
Trees for New York.
Trees New York.
Trees New York,
independent nonprofit.
Yeah, I'm in conversation with them as well.
Yeah, because it really should happen all over the country. I mean, you've begun it, but I feel like it's, deserves momentum.
Thank you.
Thank you. And other partners.
Thank you.
The videos were very moving, by the way. I mean, I know that you said they're rough cuts and whatever, but it was impactful.
Thank you.
But are the trees like very specific for the area that you're, like maybe something that grows here, doesn't grow in Seattle or whatever? I mean, it might be a dumb question, but it just sort of wondering.
Yeah, everything including the trees are also site-specific. I work with local urban foresters to manage everything within the scope of tree planting. I work with government agencies that do that, nonprofits that do that specifically. So they not only select the trees, they also in kind donate all the resources to plant the trees, and then also maintain them for about 3 to 5 years or around, because in the first years of that tree, especially in an urban environment, is when it needs the most care. So that's why I work with local partners to do all that. And some organizations, each one has their different focus. Some are we're doing native only. Some are doing the trees that are most easy to maintain within the specific conditions. For example, a lot of people ask about food trees or fruit trees, and those require the most maintenance. So not a lot of organizations and agencies want to plant those types of trees, but I'm also working on that as well.
Hi there. Incredibly beautiful, moving, powerful project. I love it. Question is just how do you go about determining partnering with the city? What does that look like? I currently live in Detroit, work for the city. I love that you were in Melvindale, but just curious about what that partnership looks like in Detroit. We're trying to plant 10,000 trees over the next, it's a 10-year program, a few more years left in it. So if we can bring some additional meaning to it, sounds like a great partnership opportunity.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, let's speak afterwards. So I'll share about how I started the project when, as I mentioned, especially in my lab, I was thinking about scale. So in that first year of research that we did before I even started planting, I was researching all the organizations that do tree planting within cities. So I've contacted most of them. Many ignored my call for planters, but a lot of them didn't. And so I've been in conversation actually with a few people in Detroit for the last 3 years. As you know, these projects take a long time to develop. And so, what was I saying? So, Detroit, Michigan. So, I mean, I contacted all of them, And that's really how I started. And especially now with everything that's happening, now I'm being like even more strategic in qualifying some of these organizations, especially the ones that have heat island programs, that have cool street programs, that have tree equity programs, but now you can't even say equity anymore, so. All last week I was getting emails from organizations saying, oh, we can't partner because we lost our IRA funding and things like that, so it's been a little bum. But it's good to hear that you have those 10,000 trees, and yeah, love to speak about those. Did that answer your question?
Hi. I noticed in the note about the symposium that's going on, it spoke to creating memories. How does that fit in to your plan? Yeah,
so Black Forest is two things essentially. It's an urban forest, but it's also a story archive. The story archive, I'm also saying, is the films documenting this. We have about 6 in production, and I want to do another 4, and then I want to do also a longer one. But also, we've been developing a hotline where people can call and record stories, and then those stories will be mapped to the trees through a digital system. So that is like 75% of the way, but again, that's another thing I have to fundraise for as well.
Former basketball player with the Knicks, Bill Bradley, was a U.S. senator. You heard of him? He's had a show on radio on, I think, NPR, one of the stations, where people call in and record and talk about things that they've done in terms of creating inspiration and revealing storylines. You should check that out, because I think it's something that you might find appealing.
Is that StoryCorps or something else?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked on StoryCorps a long, long time ago when I first moved to New York in 2006. And storytelling has been part of my practice for a while, but what I was trying to do through my lab was create a system that was crowdsourced and would scale without me having to scale like a team. So we developed a lot of tools that were used for not just recording, but also transcribing, sending the transcripts to the people who recorded them for them to review, and then they would be added to a software-generated sound stream that was a remix of all these memories sort of juxtaposed together. And that was something I had done in other works in my lab, and I was sort of reapplying to this project. So, yeah, thanks. What is it? Oh, okay, thank you. American Story.
Me again. Have you applied to the Urban Field Station that's run by the U.S. Forest Service and the New York City Parks Department?
No,
because they would adore your project. Urban Field Station, U.S. Forest Service, and they have. Yes. There's actually a collaborative lab for projects here in the city, and anyway, I can give you the name of the person or just send you the link to the website for the applications.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I just had a small thought I wanted to say. The clips that we saw were so moving, and it wasn't about, for me it wasn't about trees, it was about the story archive, and that could be a whole other, with this administration, who knows, everybody's hurting, but I think, the emotional content and what you've given these families, is enormous, and it's about trees, but it's bigger than that for the individuals, and it came through really, really beautifully.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things about the project is sort of strengthening the relationship, people's relationship with trees. And so I'm thinking, well, if we plant trees for people, maybe the people will care for their trees over time. And so really the long-term thing is to create a social infrastructure for tree care. Because even before this administration, a lot of these organizations were stretched with their resources. Even with the new funding that came, they expanded a lot, but they can't take care of all the trees in these communities especially. So, so part of this work is about really creating a social infrastructure for tree care. Thank you. Oh, okay. Looks like it's a wrap. Thanks, everyone.